AFC North, obviously the class of this. Again, the toughest division. This is probably the tough. Well, I don't know if this is the toughest division in the AFC. I kind of think so. Yeah, I think the NFC North is the toughest division in the AFC. Both North divisions are just crazy right now. Both crazy right now. Toughest divisions of football. I got the Ravens going 12-5. They end up winning the number one seed. I think they're the best team in the AFC, mainly because the Bills were, kind of the quintessential number one team, but they got humiliated by the Ravens in the middle of the season last year, 35-10. A lot of people don't talk about that game. The Ravens dominated what was supposed to be the best team in the AFC. And then, of course, against the Chiefs, they always go back and forth. Ravens have been able to win in the regular season sometimes, but not in the postseason. So we'll see how that all plays out. The Ravens are my pick to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. It just depends on if Lamar Jackson can get over that playoff hump. But the Ravens are my pick to represent because I don't think that playoff game. I think the Bills were able to win because it was more in their element, so it'll be different this time around. But I do think the Bills. I would like to see a Bills Lions Super Bowl. That would be fun. But I do think the Ravens are the ones that end up getting it. Next in the AFC North, I've got the Bengals. The Bengals are going 10-7, and that is enough for them to get into the playoffs. It probably would have been worse had Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson not worked out their situations. Um, and the fact that the Bengals took so long, I mean, for a veteran like Trey Hendrickson, not being at camp probably isn't going to hurt him very much. But for a rookie, who's still trying to come into his own, Shamar Stewart might take longer to get going because he hasn't been practicing with all the other rookies, right? So it may take some time. He may not become that, complement to Trey Hendrickson until like towards the middle, back half of the year. The Bengals didn't do anything to fix their defense. And I don't really understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, like T. Higgins is a great piece, but I think I would have traded him if I was the Bengals and got a young guy to come up and be able to play second fiddle to Jamar Chase. Because you probably could have got a first for T. Higgins. Honestly, people love him that much. He's that good. But they want to keep the duo together. So the Bengals are just going to rely on outscoring everybody all season, and we'll see how well it works. I have them going 10-7 with it. I don't think they're going to start off as slowly. I think they're gonna beat the Jaguars in week two. That's us. Um, so I don't think they'll start as slowly. But their offensive line looked a little discombobulated in the preseason. You can't put too much stock into the preseason, but that would be something to keep an eye on because if you're able, the only way to stop their offense is to get to Joe Burrow. That's the only way to stop their offense. And if you can do that consistently, if you can stop their offense even for one drive, if you can stop their offense for one drive, you could potentially win the game by running the ball and scoring. So we'll see. We'll see. But I have the Bengals going 10-7. I have the Steelers with another winning season with Aaron Rodgers at the helm going 9-8. However, the Steelers get the eighth seed and just barely miss out in the playoffs as well. Um, with Mike Tomlin, I mean, I'm just not going to pick against him ever having a losing season. I don't think, and when he has one of the most talented quarterbacks ever, I don't think this is going to be the year. But I don't think they're going to go 10-7. I think they're going to go 9-8. I think it was an interesting decision to trade away George Pickens, like basically swap him out for DK Metcalf. I kind of think that's an upgrade because DK Metcalf is more used to being the one. I think he's a better receiver than George Pickens. Um, and you traded a second and got a third back, so it was like kind of an interesting swap out. The question is, I just don't know what the Steelers' plan is after this, right? Because I think no one believes that Aaron Rodgers is enough to get the Steelers to the Super Bowl. But they didn't really draft a guy to groom underneath him. Like I almost would have taken Shadur Sanders if I was the Steelers to let Aaron Rodgers, you know, I almost would have taken Shadur if I was the Steelers to let him kind of develop under Aaron Rodgers and learn from Aaron Rodgers, one of the best in the game. Look what happened with Jordan Love, right? And maybe keep Rodgers for like one more year after this one if he's willing to, if you really wanted to let him sit. And maybe they'll draft a guy next year to let him sit. But to me, like the biggest asset that Aaron Rodgers can provide for your team is to allow you to play winning football, right? And have someone young to learn from and watch him because it's not just like Aaron Rodgers takes him under his wing. Sometimes it's just being there, watching him practice, watching the things that he does, that can kind of make a difference for some kids. So I guess we'll see. But I have the Steelers going 9-8, and then I have the worst team in the AFC being the Browns at 2-15. Now I am as a Jaguars fan, and very disappointed that we were unable to take advantage of how bad the Deshaun Watson trade was, right? Because if we beat like we've been better than the Browns for the past 2 years. I feel like most people wouldn't dispute that. And the Browns have ended up with a worse record than us. But for some reason, we lost to them twice in the past 2 years. And had we beat them any one of those years, we would have went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. I think our entire season is completely different if we just at least beat the Browns at home when Deshaun Watson was playing. Our entire season in 2023, we win the division if we just beat Joe Flacco. So that's just one of those things that's just it's going to be hard to wrap our minds around and like keep intact. But right now, even with Joe Flacco starting, I have the Browns going 2-15. Um, I think they'll probably end up selling assets. I think Joe Flacco was able to win some games with the Colts, but I think he'll start to get figured out. And I think the Browns end up, and again, being in the NFC North, all those teams they know they're vying for trying to get to the next level. The Browns end up being the odd one out, and they may not end up with like 2 wins. That's not a whole lot, but it's going to be a rough season for the Browns.